Ahoy there, everyone. What is going on? I got the lovely and beautiful Miss Danny girl with me here today to discuss Obi-Wan. How's it going, Danny?
Good. Why are you so flattering to me? That was lovely.
Because you're awesome, that's why. So, Obi-Wan Kenobi, holy crap. I got to watch the episodes before you did, and you heard my reactions.
I tried not to, but that was not super successful the entire time.
So, what were you hearing from the other room? What were you hearing me say? What were you hearing me? How was my reaction to the episodes?
If I were to do a reenactment, it would be, oh my god.
That sounds about right. I was seriously like on the edge of my couch, at moments on the verge of crying multiple times in the episodes. Both episodes were fantastic from start to finish. I had very, very, very minute issues with part one and part two. Those episodes were about as good as I could have hoped for, and definitely surpassed my expectations and had a lot of things going for them that I was not expecting.
Thought it was so much fun from start to finish. And actually, I won't even say fully fun because there were definitely some really hard-hitting gut punches, but it was extremely entertaining.
Yeah, you absolutely. The first like 10, 20 minutes of that episode of part one was ridiculous. And I loved that part one, I felt like did such a fantastic job of setting up the wildness that we get in part two. Part one is definitely different. It has a slower pace than part two, and I appreciated that. Seeing Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan was just fantastic. But one of the things that I loved was the fact that the episode opens and we get that like callback to the prequels, and we get to see all those important moments from the prequels, which I was not expecting at all.
No, I really had no idea, but I absolutely loved it. And it was a nice little, I thought that they edited it very well. They hit all of those points to really make you feel more emotions once you actually kind of see how Obi-Wan is in the current timeline.
Yeah, and I felt like, especially with that scene, to me, a lot of the themes that I kept seeing recurring in both part one and part two is the idea of failure and overcoming that failure and redemption. And the opening, before we even get to the damn beginning of part one, that opening scene just hammering home the idea that, yo, the Jedi failed. Obi-Wan absolutely failed. And now he is sowing what he reaped, essentially. And it was so impactful. And then we open the part one with frickin' Order 66, which again was not expecting at all. But anytime I see Order 66 scenes, they never ever fail to like just absolutely gut punch me.
Oh, absolutely. I think because you came over and started watching it again when I watched it for the first time, and literally as soon as they opened on Order 66, I groaned and was like, oh no, because I knew exactly, like, you know exactly what's going to happen. I was like, how much are they really going to show? And it just, it got me crying this time.
Yeah, and we start like you see the cityscape of Coruscant, and then it slowly comes into the Jedi Temple, and we get a close up of a youngling training who looks like they could be third sister. I'm thinking that might have been third sister. And then Order 66 happens, and holy crap. One of the things that I have appreciated in part one and also in the Book of Boba Fett, I love how the lightsabers look. They have the color looks more full than we've seen in other live action versions of Star Wars. And I thought that was one of the first things that I noticed once the action starts happening was, man, the lightsabers look so damn cool. I love how the colors looked. And then immediately I'm like, oh my God, this is heartbreaking. And I hate and love seeing Order 66 scenes. And I can't remember the name of that Jedi that is protecting the younglings. I looked it up right after the episode, and I'm drawing a blank on their name now, but I really liked seeing the choreography of her protecting those younglings, and then obviously she gets killed, which was such a bummer. And I also wondered if, again, that young girl, could that be the third sister, or could any of these other younglings possibly come back into the series later on? I'm not too sure.
I know we talked about it specifically, that group that escaped that we saw running away. That would, hopefully they escaped, but if they did, could be the ones hunting those Jedi down now, which is really a sad fate.
Yeah, and again, going back to what I mentioned earlier, I love that the series part 1 opens with this scene, because again, it's setting up the failures of the Jedi Order, right? The rise of the Sith, but then also allowing the viewer to say, hey, there's a seed of hope that some of these Jedi escaped Order 66 and could play a role in helping to take down the Sith, or helping the rebellion in one way or another, like we saw in Rebels with Kanan. So I thought that was really cool. And again, it seeing Order 66, especially in live action, is awesome, even if it does break my heart every goddamn time. Never fails.
I don't have anything to add to that. It was just a cry fest.
Yeah, when I watched it with you, you were...
I sobbed. I feel like it was extremely heavy. It was definitely heavy with everything that's going on right now, but Order 66 really just gets me every time. You feel for those little younglings.
After you had mentioned that to me with what's been happening in America, I wondered if there was any hesitation by Lucasfilm and Disney to show that scene, which I wouldn't be surprised, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, heavy scene, man, and it definitely was like a goddamn gut punch. So let's keep moving on here. So yeah, just kind of going back to these scenes. I love how the lightsabers looked. It looked so cool. And now we fast forward to 10 years later, and we're on Tatooine, and I love this shot right here. This was like one of my favorite shots in the episode, as weird as that might sound, because I felt like metaphorically and literally this is the Empire and the Sith looming over the head of the galactic citizens. They control the galaxy now, and again, just hammering home that failure in the Jedi, that now the Sith and the Empire rule, and they rule with an iron fist. And I loved seeing this, and then seeing the Grand Inquisitor, the fifth brother, and the third sister come to Tatooine, and they're looking for a Jedi. And man, yeah, that guy in the background, I don't know what kind of species that is. That guy's got like a killer mustache, just looking like, oh my God, who's this scary looking guy? What's he want? But I love the Inquisitors. They are such an awesome concept. And some of my favorite characters at this point in canon have been the Inquisitors. I love the Grand Inquisitor in Rebels. I love the fifth brother and seventh sister. And then in Fallen Order, the second sister is awesome. And I'm really enjoying so far. I felt a little bit... I got a weird vibe with the fifth brother and the third sister and their dialogue, but watching it for a second time, it didn't bother me as much. And now going through both part 1 and part 2 for a second time, definitely the third sister has grown on me. So I'm really happy that we're getting to see the Inquisitorius and the Inquisitors, and that they're going to be a big part of this series, and they have been in the first 2 parts.
Yeah, they've been really exciting to kind of see in that live action. They are absolutely terrifying. They have amazing lightsabers. Love the helicopter, or whatever you'd want to call it, spinning lightsabers. They're spectacular and are super intimidating.
There are some shops that sell like the Grand Inquisitor's lightsaber that you could buy, and I think the seventh sisters and maybe even the second sisters, you could buy those hilts, which I would love to get one because they are so awesome looking. I know some people aren't a fan of them because of the fact that they can do like, they've got apparently like thrusters in them, or maybe not thrusters, repulsor lifts in them, which is that's what makes them be able to like helicopter spin with them. But I'm all about their lightsabers.
I would say I don't care about that. I love the helicopter. What is it in I think it's in Rebels where they I'm trying to think. Can we mind meld for a second to try to get my words out?
Season 2, yeah, and I think we might have seen it even in season 1. In season 2, definitely we see him multiple times use the helicopters, and in I think it's episode 21 and in 22 we see them and Malachor use their lightsabers as helicopters, which again I thought was baller as hell. I know some people aren't into them, but I do like it. And we do see in part 2 the Grand Inquisitor use that spinning motion on his lightsaber, which I thought was so damn cool. So moving along in the episode right now, the Inquisitors arrive on Tatooine. They're looking for a Jedi, and originally my thought is they're looking for Obi-Wan. They've gotten some sort of tip that Obi-Wan's on Tatooine, but that's not the case. And so they go to this cantina, and they're trying to get information because they've heard rumors that there is a Jedi on Tatooine helping people, helping someone. And man, the Grand Inquisitor, Rupert Friend, however you pronounce his name, I was like kind of skeptical about him coming into this episode. And so far, I think he's been one of the coolest parts of Obi-Wan. He's like terrifying.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I know people were upset about his head not being elongated. I get it. But, I mean, his acting is pretty amazing. I am more than okay with looking past that and absolutely just seeing how terrifying he truly is, even with his own Inquisitors.
Yeah, I wanted him to have a little bit more of a chrome dome. He's kind of got a bulbous head. It definitely does not look like the Powans that we saw in Revenge of the Sith and how the Grand Inquisitor looked in Rebels. And I could tell you that when the trailer dropped, that was one of the things I was like, oh, that sucks. But so far, I am like, yo, Grand Inquisitor, Rupert Friend, he is so far nailed it out of the park with portraying the Grand Inquisitor, and he is one scary bastard. And so in this scene here, we see them in this cantina. I totally got the sense that the Grand Inquisitor could sense who that Jedi was, but was trying to, basically, like he was saying, trying to flush him out. The Jedi will hunt themselves, or whatever the exact quote was that he said. I got the vibe that he knew who the Jedi was in that room and was basically just wanted to slowly terrify them. I don't know. Did you get that sense or no?
Yeah, I definitely did. I think he knows what he's doing, and he knows how to do what he's doing very well. And clearly throughout the scene, Reva kind of jumps in and self into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, I like how he's like, you're reckless. He says to the third sister, because she wants no part of this. She wants to be done with this. She wants to be on to bigger fish. And she uses the Force to hurl a knife at the cantina owner. And the Jedi, I believe his name is Nari, something like that. Nori, he uses the Force to stop the knife from going into that canteen owner's head. And the Jedi winds up escaping, but then that causes that internal strife amongst, I don't want to say amongst the Inquisitors, because it's really the fifth brother, the Grand Inquisitor, against the third sister. And they talk about this, you kind of get a sense of that in part 2, why that is, but I still wonder why exactly they have this animosity towards her. If she was, let's say, a youngling and then eventually became an Inquisitor, the Grand Inquisitor was a guard in the Jedi Temple. The fifth brother, I can't remember if he was a Jedi. I think he was, not 100% sure, but the Grand Inquisitor definitely was. So I think that there is more to the third sister's backstory and what's going on with her. and there's more of a reason why there is that animosity between the Grand Inquisitor, the third brother, or excuse me, the fifth brother, and the third sister.
I'm going to agree with you on that one, and I hope that they are able to explore that a little bit more later in the series. I know it's only, I think you said 6 episodes, so there's not a ton of time, but that would be really great to see a little bit more explanation as to kind of that, like you said, the animosity, the hatred that they had towards the third sister. Because right now it kind of feels like there's definitely more going on than just, oh, she's ambitious. Because clearly they're all Inquisitors. They are all ambitious. They all want to hunt these Jedi and kill them. Like that's the grand plan.
Yeah, and you had mentioned this to me, and I hadn't even thought about it until part 2, where the Grand Inquisitor makes a comment about her being ambitious. But yeah, she's being ambitious. There's a reason why she's doing that. She's acting this way. And I love that you're getting that sense that there is absolutely like competition between these three. And part 2, we see another Inquisitor come into the picture, right? There's animosity between them. There's competition between them. There's probably some jealousy between them. And those are all, I guess, symptoms or things that we would come to expect with the dark side, right? The dark side is all about being selfish, not selfless. So it totally makes sense that these individuals within the Inquisitorius are all going to have probably some ill will towards one another. There's going to be some jealousy. There's going to be some competition. And I appreciate that was something that we saw very early on in these characters' introduction, because I feel like that's so on point with how the Inquisitorius and the Inquisitors have been portrayed in Rebels and even in the comics as well.
Look at Sith rule too. Everybody, you're out for yourselves, and at the end of the day, literally yourself over your master. So why wouldn't these dark side users kind of be the same way?
Yeah, and absolutely. And it's the same thing with the Empire. The Empire and the Imperial military is all about that competition to make the Empire as strong as possible. And again, I just really appreciate that we got to see that so early on in the episode. Billy's blockbuster, I was really disappointed with both episodes. That stinks, man. I'm sorry to hear that. I try to go into Star Wars, whatever I'm consuming with Star Wars, whether it's movies, shows, comics, or books, I try to put all of my expectations aside and what I want to see and just say, hey, I'm hoping to have fun and have a good story. So I tend to a lot of times not be disappointed, as weird as that may sound. But with these 2 episodes, I was like, again, on the edge of my seat. I was, especially in part 1, very emotional, very tough for me to like contain my emotion. So I really, really enjoyed them. So stinks that you didn't like the first 2 parts. Hopefully, I think we're definitely going to start to see things get even more wild in part 3, 4, 5, and most likely 6, especially when we start to see Vader make his appearance, because we got to see him in the end of part 2, which we'll get to. So the Inquisitors, they're looking for a Jedi. It's not Obi-Wan, but eventually we do come to Obi-Wan. And man, I have to say, find Obi-Wan, one of the things that got to me pretty hard in part 1 was just how defeated and dejected Obi-Wan was in the episode for pretty much 99% of it. It's only until the end where we kind of start to see a semblance of Obi-Wan that we know and love. Throughout pretty much the entirety of part 1, he is just completely dejected and a broken man, haunted by what happened in Revenge of the Sith. And seeing him in for the first time, I was just like, oh, this again felt like a very big gut punch to me, because it's the complete opposite of how we've seen Obi-Wan up to this point in pretty much any story.
Absolutely. I feel like the one part where we did really see the Obi-Wan of old is when he was talking to the Jawa, and he had his little quips about, like, if you steal from me, like, at least clean my stuff first.
I love that. That was like the comical, sassy Obi-Wan that we know and love. And we got to see that brief moment of him. But like, what a sad existence, right? For 10 years, for a decade, we're going to assume his entire existence is get up, go do some terrible, crappy job, make next to nothing, barely surviving. You're going to watch over Luke and then rinse repeat for a damn decade. Think about how grueling and like mentally taxing that has to be on someone. And then that makes sense. That makes sense that we would see an Obi-Wan that's, again, completely dejected and just a shell of his former self.
But you know he's never going to give up on doing this, even as he will put himself on the line and be a sad sack, miserable man for the rest of his life, because that's what he feels like his duty is at this point. It's just to protect Luke. It's just, this is his last fulfillment as a Jedi, to make up, hopefully, in his mind, probably for those sins of old.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love you. That's a great point. And I love that the episode ends with that like glimmer of hope that, all right, Obi-Wan is going to start to regain that confidence that we know he has, that the Obi-Wan that we got to see in the prequels and in the Clone Wars animated series, we know it's still in there. He's just got to rediscover that confidence. But yeah, seeing him like this definitely got me choked up. I definitely had to like fight back tears at this part. It's like, this is completely not the Obi-Wan that I know. And I came into the series expecting Obi-Wan to be like this, but yeah, it was a little bit tougher than I thought it would be for me.
It's also hard to think. So I can't remember, I think it was on the Ringerverse podcast, they were talking, or they spoke with Deborah Chow quickly, and they apparently went through some rewrites because of how even more sad and how more depressing it was, I guess, in the first round. So
really?
The fact that this is the second round, this is the brought back version. I don't know what the right word is.
Wow. So like, I'm curious what that initial version would have looked like ultra depressed Obi-Wan.
Pretty depressed as it was.
Yeah. This is a very sad existence that we're seeing Obi-Wan live in. But man, I have to say, you know, bringing up Deborah Chow, I am like, dude, give her more stuff. And I know we still have more episodes. This entire series has to play out. But some of my favorite episodes in The Mandalorian, she directed. And yeah, I am like loving Deborah Chow at the helm of Star Wars storytelling. So I hope she gets more Star Wars stories that she gets to tell outside of Mandalorian and Obi-Wan, because I think she's done a fantastic job thus far.
I don't remember. Is she doing the whole series, or is it just a? Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, she wrote this entire series, I believe. I don't know, like I don't know if they call her the showrunner. Maybe they do. But yeah, she wrote the series and directed each of the episodes. So yeah, this is her like baby. And I'm glad that they did that. I'm glad that they just said, hey, we're going to give this show to one person so that they make their version of what Obi-Wan looks like during this time.
You know, that's obviously a huge amount of pressure that's on her, but I do like the continuity. You know what you're getting. And I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Yeah. One other point I just want to talk about real quickly before we move on into what happens later in part 1. But my thought with what we're going to get in this series, especially in part 1, was going to be a lot of what we saw in the Obi-Wan Legends novel, which I love that novel, but I'm actually really glad that so far, really not much other than his Eopie that you see from the Obi-Wan novel, which I appreciated. So from here, we get to see Obi-Wan living his life, doing his thing, again, working, watching over Luke. I love that he cut that little piece of fish, the sandfish, gigantic sandfish, for his Eopie. Like that's his homeboy. He's going to take care of him. I thought that was really cool. All right. And then he goes back to his cave. And we get this moment here with the Jawa, which you mentioned earlier, which I really like this scene. I like that it brought a little bit of levity to the story. But again, it also was another moment that got me choked up because of some of the Easter eggs that we saw in this scene. So we see here, he gets this toy Star Hopper that from the Jawas, which we see later in A New Hope, Luke playing with, which I thought was so cool. And seeing that, again, this is Obi-Wan's goal, is to just take care of Luke and watch over him. And I thought this was so cool. I also really enjoyed too the you had mentioned the fact that, I can't remember the name of the part, but the Jawa stole his part. And Obi-Wan calls the Jawa out on it. Is like, if you're going to steal my parts and sell it back to me, could you at least wash it? And the Jawa was like, oh, that washing costs extra. That was great. That was so good. But we then see that the Jawa finds, I'm assuming this is Obi-Wan's belt from the star, and they mentioned Jedi starship. I think they said it crashed. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, I'm assuming that's Obi-Wan's belt. Did you think the same thing?
That's what I'm hoping. I mean, I feel like, just again, reminders of his previous life and just how far he's fallen.
Yeah, and that's why I'm assuming this has got to be his belt, right? Just again, that reminder of his past life, his failures, and the results of his actions. And then we get this scene, another scene that I was just like, oh my God. He's asleep and he's having this nightmare, haunted by, again, those failures from Revenge of the Sith, the failures of Anakin falling to the dark side. And he wakes up calling out to Qui-Gon Jinn, which I know a lot of people, myself included, speculated that we were going to see Force Ghost Qui-Gon Jinn, but it makes sense that we don't see Qui-Gon appear at this point, because I don't even know if he's tapped in, if he's connected to the Force at this point. Like, I know Obi-Wan, one of his abilities is he can hide his Force sensitivity very, very well, but I don't think he's tapping into the Force at all. At least that's not the sense that I got. What did you think?
I'm going to agree with you. I don't think that he has been in hiding for this long. And the fact that the Inquisitors were able to find this other Jedi, they're not on to really Obi-Wan at all at this point. And I'm going to jump ahead to episode 2 quickly. Seeing how much he struggled when he did end up using the Force, I can't imagine that he has actually... I think he's closed himself off as much as possible. I don't think he's using it, thinking about it much as he can.
Yeah, that's a good point. In part 2, we see him save Leia as she's falling, and he struggles. So yeah, I do think that at this point, he's cut himself off from the Force, kind of like Luke in The Last Jedi. So it would make sense that Qui-Gon doesn't appear to him at this point, but you're not going to mention Master Qui-Gon possibly appearing to Obi-Wan if you're not keeping that ace up your sleeve for later on in the series, right? Like, there's no way.
Absolutely not. I mean, they showed the clip of Yoda talking about how he's going to show, Obi-Wan how to connect with his master.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to add that in just for the hell of it.
Absolutely not. Hell no. And dude, like, seeing Obi-Wan talk to Qui-Gon, I'm like, I am dying for that. I can't remember the name of the short story, but From A New Hope, or excuse me, From a Certain Point of View, Qui-Gon speaks to Obi-Wan, and I that's one of my favorite short stories in that book. So yeah, I'm like really hoping we get to see Qui-Gon appear. And again, I don't think that seed would be planted if it wasn't going to happen later on down the road. So moving along, we come to Obi-Wan. He's still watching over Luke, doing his duty, right? He eventually sees Luke. I enjoyed this scene where it almost seemed like something happened to Luke, but Luke is pretending to fly, which I thought was really cute. I know we saw that in the trailer, but I did appreciate seeing that again because I thought it was cute. And then we come to young Leia, which I told you this after I watched it. I had no clue whatsoever that she was going to be in this series at all. And I know, did you think that she was going to be in Obi-Wan?
No, I had no idea. I don't even recall like coming across anybody mentioning it. I'm sure people did, but I sat there and was like, oh my gosh, I think I definitely let out a squeak of some kind.
Yeah, and Alderaan is one of my favorite planets. I used to play Star Wars: The Old Republic, and Alderaan was one of my favorite planets to go to in that game because it's such a beautiful planet, and I love that you get to see those mountains and the palace and those buildings. It's just such a cool planet, and I'm so happy that we got to visit it. And again, I thought it was really cool that we get to see Leia. And again, I just did not think that she was going to be in this series, and it makes a ton of sense that she would be, right? Later on in the episode, Bail mentions she's just as important as Luke is, and yeah, she is. She is just as important to the events that will transpire in the future as Luke is. She's a huge part of the rebellion, so I love that they included Leia into this story, and I loved how Deborah Chow wound up writing Leia being the reason why Obi-Wan has to get off Tatooine. Because I remember reading theories and speculation about what was going to happen and why Obi-Wan was going to have to leave Tatooine, and everyone surmised that, hey, Obi-Wan's going to have to leave Tatooine to protect Luke because the Inquisitors or Darth Vader is onto Luke. And no, that's not it. It's Leia. He's got to help Leia because the Inquisitors, which we'll find out later, the third sister is using her as a means to get to Obi-Wan, which I thought was just absolutely brilliant.
Loved it. I love seeing Leia as a little girl. I love what a smartass she is, and she is just she's just adorable. She is an adorable little girl who's too smart for her own good and is obviously destined for amazing things.
That sassiness and the stubbornness in her was just this young actress, I don't know her name, she did a very good job for how, I mean, she can't be older than what, 11, 12 years old, maybe, right? Like, that girl would act circles around me. She did such a good job portraying young Leia, and I love her little droid. Her little droid is awesome. What's the droid's name? Is Lola? Lola, yeah. Such a cool little droid. And again, this was just something really fun that I was not expecting, and I thought was a great way to include Leia into the story, and I thought it made a lot of sense. But then on top of that, we get to see, again, we're on Alderaan, we get to see Leia, and we get to see her family, which we'll get more into in a moment. But now we go back to Tatooine, and Owen is not happy that Obi-Wan has left this toy gift for Luke. He wants Obi-Wan out of Luke's life. And there was that meme that came out after the trailer was released where Owen tells Obi-Wan says something to Owen like, the boy's got to be trained. And then Owen says, oh, kind of like Anakin or something to that effect. And it's emotional damage. It's just so good. It's so good. But yeah, it's like, it's messed up, but it's the truth, right? Like, yeah, you want to train him. Oh, kind of like you trained Anakin. Well, look how that worked out. And I like that you're seeing that Owen does not care for Obi-Wan. He has no love for the Jedi, which we'll hear him say to the third sister. And he doesn't want Obi-Wan to be a part of Luke's life. And then the damn Inquisitors arrive. And dude, this scene had me anxious as hell because I was like, is Owen going to tell them about Obi-Wan? Is Obi-Wan going to reveal himself to the Inquisitors to save Owen? So I was like on the edge of my seat with this scene. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about this scene is seeing the difference between how the fifth brother wants to handle this and how third sister wants to handle this. Fifth brother is trying to take a more, I don't want to say civil approach because that's not the word I'm thinking of, but his way of handling this is, hey, we'll give you guys a reward if you reveal to us where this Jedi is. And the third sister wants no part of that. She is going to start slicing people's hands off if they don't reveal where this hidden Jedi was, which I was not expecting to see her lop off this damn like Tatooine moisture farmer's hands off. When I saw it, I was like, holy crap, man, I was not expecting that.
She meant business, and she wanted to make sure that y'all understood she meant business. Yeah, that was definitely another gasping moment.
And then I have to say, I really liked the third sister's interaction with Owen. This was the part where I was like, damn, she's scary, dude. Like, she does this little thing when she's speaking to Owen where she grabs his jacket and is like pulling it back onto his shoulders, and then she makes a comment, something to the effect of, "You're protecting your family. I appreciate that." And she kind of like lightly punches him in his chest, or like nudges him in his chest. And I was just like, damn. And then she makes a comment to, "You want to protect your family. Do you think you can protect them from me?" And again, just hammering home that she will do whatever she thinks she needs to do to get what she wants. So yeah, she's a badass.
I kept thinking, like, when that scene was going on, like, she kind of like tried to get Owen to let his guard down a little bit when she was doing the little moving his jacket or his shirt and kind of like making sure, like, "Oh, you're okay, you're good to go." And then it was like, ha.
Yeah, that's a really good point that I hadn't thought of. Yeah, I definitely think, now that you say that,
The shock.
I definitely think she was trying to like maybe do a little bit of like the good cop shtick. And then when she realized that wasn't working, she's like, all right, well, now I'm going to go back to being my terrifying self, and I'm going to threaten to kill you.
For some reason, I just keep picturing her doing like a backward spin and like a judo chop. I don't know.
Judo chop.
Maybe that's just me picturing you doing it too. Yeah.
Could very well be the case. But yeah, she's terrifying, man. And again, I like that you're seeing the differences in how these Inquisitors want to handle things. And again, just hammering home that point that there is definitely strife. There is not unity amongst the Inquisitors. And they especially right now do not like the third sister. The rest of the Inquisitors that we've seen so far do not have any love for the third sister, right? And so we see here when third sister chops off that moisture farmer or damn peasant on Tatooine, chops off their hand and then threatens to kill Owen, fifth brother is not happy with her at all, and he lets her know that. And again, I enjoy seeing these scenes because that's exactly what I would expect from the Inquisitors, that we're going to see them butt heads. They are not going to be willing to help each other. They're more about helping themselves. And so yeah, I really enjoyed this scene.
I agree. Absolutely. Again, terrifying.
Now, going back to Alderaan, and we get to see my boy Jimmy Schmitz. Dude, I love this image, man. I love how this image was framed. I love seeing the mountains in the background and just father and daughter staring at those mountains. And again, I really was happy that we got to see Jimmy Schmitz. Maybe I might have heard some rumblings that he could appear in the series, but again, he was not someone on my radar as appearing early on in this series. I did not expect Jimmy Schmitz to reprise his role as Bail Organa and appearing in part one. So I really appreciated that. And we get to see this really endearing moment where Leia is upset because her cousin says to her that she's not a real Organa, and Bail's like, no, you absolutely are. And that was I thought was a really special moment. I really enjoyed that moment. And yeah, my boy Bail, I always love getting to see him.
I also just want to say that Leia's dressing down of her cousin was freaking amazing. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, she, again, this young actress would act circles around my ass. She does it. I was very impressed with her.
Reminds me of Liana.
Yeah, is Liana Mormont going to be in the new Star Wars show that was just announced, Skeleton Crew, or another Star Wars show? Or am I imagining this? I saw Liana Mormont, I can't remember that actress's name, being listed as a character in an upcoming series, and I feel like it was a Star Wars one, so hopefully I'm right.
Maybe she'll be the teenage Leia. I mean, I feel like they got the dark hair. I feel like they could be...
I could see it.
A little similar.
But yeah, I enjoyed this scene, and again, I enjoy seeing our boy Bail, because why the hell would we not, right? So now, from here, we then see Leia leave the palace and Flea shows up from Red Hot Chili Peppers. This was a moment where I was like, what? Flea? What? I would say, is probably one of my gripes with Obi-Wan. I didn't think he was all that great, but he had a very minor role, so it didn't bother me too much. But yeah, we learned that he's here because we saw him lurking in the shadows throughout the episodes a few times, and we learned that he's here to capture Leia, which he does. And at that point, Bail reaches out to Obi-Wan to ask for Obi-Wan's help because of who Leia is. They can't go to the Senate. They can't turn to other people because of how important she is. And because she's the daughter of Anakin Skywalker, they can't just turn to anyone. And so they want Obi-Wan to help. And Obi-Wan's like, nah, brah, sorry, can't help you out. Go maybe reach out to a bounty hunter and see if they'll help you out. Which I was kind of glad that he didn't initially take them up. Like, he didn't offer that help, because again, it's just hammering home that point that this is a broken Obi-Wan. This is not the Obi-Wan that we saw in the beginning of the Clone Wars and during the prequels. This is a guy that's beaten down.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it just also hammers home how much he knows he has to stay hidden. If he's leaving Tatooine, he's got to do so for a good reason, which this to him is not a good reason. He's got no hope. He knows he's got to stay and protect Luke, and that's all he's going to do. He's not trying to put his neck out there for anyone else.
Yeah, and again, I thought this was a really good way to get Obi-Wan to leave Tatooine, because it makes sense. As Bail tells Obi-Wan, she's just as important as Luke is. And I did really appreciate that. And then we get to this scene, which Nori, whatever that Jedi's name is, strung up for all these people on Tatooine to see. And I think at this point, that's when Obi-Wan was like, all right, I need to do something, right? Obi-Wan wasn't specifically the cause of this Jedi's death, but his inaction led to this Jedi dying, at least to some degree. And I think that's when Obi-Wan turns and makes that decision that, all right, I'm going to help Bail, and I'm going to help. Actually, you know what? No, because that's right. Bail shows up, and then that's when he's like, all right, I'm going to help. So that we see that the Jedi being killed, Bail coming, and at that point, Obi-Wan's like, all right, I'm going to help. I'm going to see what I can do to get Leia back. And then he goes to the desert where he is buried his and Anakin's lightsaber, which again, just another emotional moment. Those are two lightsabers that we see them, and there's a lot of emotion attached to those lightsabers, which seeing him digging up those lightsabers was really cool, really emotional. And then we learn that it is the third sister who was responsible for the capture and kidnapping of Leia. She learned through the archive that Obi-Wan and Bail Organa had a connection, so she's using the kidnapping of Leia to try to pull Obi-Wan out, which again I thought was really, really great writing. And then we see here Obi-Wan, he's committing to helping to save Leia. And I just appreciated that we got to see his confidence is starting to come back, right? We see him, he's boarding that ship to go to the planet Daiyu, and he just went from his lightsaber has been buried in the desert for 10 years. He's been living this sad, dejected life. And now he is walking on the streets of Tatooine with his lightsaber on his belt. And you see it when he's getting ready to board the ship. And I thought that was awesome. I thought that was a really great way to end the episode. We start the episode and we see him completely broken, to now we're ending the episode and we're starting to see Obi-Wan regain some of that confidence and some of what we have come to love about Obi-Wan over the years.
Just as a quick side note, looking at this picture, that is a really fine looking beard for how much time he has spent in the desert. Even if he is dejected, he is taking care of that beard. Like, that is
my man
trimmed.
knows how to groom. Although the Jawa said he stunk, so I guess he takes care of his beard, but doesn't shower, doesn't bathe.
You shower on Tatooine? Where are you showering?
That's
Where are you paying that money?
Moisture is hard to come by, so yeah, they're probably not showering very often. So yeah, I guess it would make sense that he's going to be trimming up his beard.
Just needed to throw that out there.
So our immaculately bearded, trimmed Obi-Wan is headed off to Daiyu with his lightsaber hung from his belt, and we open up part 2 right on Daiyu. And I'm so glad that right off the rip we're starting off second episode, new planet. We're not dilly-dallying. Tatooine has been in a ton of live action Star Wars, so I like that part 2 is going to open up right on a brand new planet. And I loved the look of this planet. Like, when I saw this, especially this shot, it totally made me think of like a southeastern Asian city. Could be in Thailand or Japan. Like, that was the first thing that my mind went to when I saw this, and I love that.
Was it supposed to be Singapore, or was it? I'm trying to remember. I know of course, I forgot what the city was. I know they kind of modeled it after a specific city, but that's escaping me at this moment in time.
And that would make a ton of sense, because Singapore, yeah, I could totally see that. And I loved how much of this episode is kind of a dark in terms of just the lighting. And there are multiple scenes where a character is very dimly lit and the scene is very dimly lit. And I love that the planet Daiyu and the city definitely had a vibe, a gritty, sort of grimy vibe to it. And you hear multiple points in the episode that, you know, people do things here and they don't want other people to know about it. We see Obi-Wan interacting with some of these, like, the scum and villainy element of Daiyu. So yeah, I really enjoyed that this planet had a feel to it very, very early in the episode, and I really liked that. And then we get this scene of a freaking homeless clone trooper, which, again, something I was not expecting, and something that I was like, damn, dude, super emotional moment and just kind of wild. And I remember reading that all of the the clone troopers were 100% CGI. So getting a completely live action clone trooper here was great to see, but also super sad.
To me, it honestly just kind of gives it more of like a real life element, fortunately, because I feel like you think of like how the U.S. treats our veterans, and just kind of like brought me back to that briefly.
Yeah, that was sadly one of the things too that I thought. I can't remember the exact percent, but essentially the vast majority of the homeless population in America are veterans. So yeah, that was like one of the first things that popped into my mind, was just bringing that realism. And then yeah, seeing just a homeless clone trooper, just super freaking sad, and just, again, something that I didn't expect, but just another added element to these episodes that I really enjoyed. And then we get this scene with Kumail Nanjiani, which I had me cracking up, because right away he's not a Force user. He's scamming these poor people, but his delivery of this in this scene I thought was so good and had me cracking up.
Just so good. I feel like, give the man on the money. He's in all the Disney properties. Let's keep it going. Yeah, he's
great. He really is a fantastic actor. So I'm happy that we got to see him in this. I remember seeing the trailer thinking that maybe he might actually be a Jedi, but we learn very, very quickly that is not the case. He is a con artist, but he also kind of has like a soft side. Even though he's scamming these people out of money, he's still helping them. So he's kind of like a good-hearted con artist, which we do see later in the episode. He does wind up helping Obi-Wan and Leia, and even puts his own life on the line to help them. So yeah, I again, this was another added part of the story that I really liked that I wasn't fully expecting.
I really just like you're getting all of these characters who really have multitudes. Nobody's perfect. Everybody's got different sides to them, and it's kind of nice to see a good-hearted con man.
And then I thought it was great too that Obi-Wan immediately sees through this and is like, all right, this guy is absolutely BSing, and basically tells him, you're going to help me, or in Obi-Wan's way of threatening him. This is the Obi-Wan threat here. You know, you got to help me. Where can I find this young girl who's been kidnapped? And at this point, the character's name, Haja, something like that. Haja winds up pointing Obi-Wan in the direction of this like spice lab, which you had meant, we talked about this, totally reminded me of Breaking Bad. Like, this is Obi-Wan in what was the camper called in Breaking Bad, or the RV? I can't remember. But yeah, totally, like, immediately reminded me of Breaking Bad, which I really, really appreciated. And even before he gets into this lab, you see this like spice dealer trying to sell Obi-Wan spice. He wants no part of it, and he's telling her, I need information, I'm looking for a young girl. She gives him a vial of spice, which comes in handy later on. And so Obi-Wan is able to create a distraction, winds up moving through and deeper into that lab. But while this is happening, we see the Grand Inquisitor, fifth brother, the fourth sister, and third sister are now on Daiyu, and they are looking for Obi-Wan. They are hot on Obi-Wan's trail. I had to look up who this other Inquisitor was on the left. So she's the fourth sister. I don't know if there's any other information about her. I looked her up quickly on Wikipedia. I don't believe that there was a lot of information. So, of course, I want to know way more about the fourth sister. I'm really hoping we get some more information about her, get to learn a little bit about her backstory. And I remember seeing in the trailer, I don't know if it was her specifically, I'm assuming it was, but I initially thought it was Barriss Offee, and then I was like, there's no way. So I'm glad it's not Barriss. But yeah, I want to know more about what her backstory is and her life before becoming an Inquisitor. At this point, we learn that the Grand Inquisitor is going to have a garrison come from the Imperial military to help find Obi-Wan, and the third sister has ulterior motives. She's going to do things her way, and so she puts a bounty out on Obi-Wan's head, which eventually gets bounty hunters on Obi-Wan's tail. But again, I really appreciate seeing that strife and that discord between the Inquisitors, showing that they're out for their own interests. Obi-Wan eventually winds up getting Leia, breaking her free from Flea and his goddamn goons, which I think one of them was a Faline, who, like, that's a species. Black Sun was primarily, I think it was all the Black Sun Prime Syndicate was like all Faline, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, Obi-Wan makes quick work of them. He uses that like vial of spice that he got earlier, throws it on the ground. They wind up getting high as hell, and then Obi-Wan and Leia make their escape, and Leia's just like kind of there for the ride. She's just going with the flow initially, and Obi-Wan knows, all right, we got to hurry up, get the hell out of here, because the Empire and the Inquisitors are on our tail. We need to get out of here as fast as possible.
She might have been going with the flow, but she was absolutely still questioning absolutely everything that Obi-Wan was saying, doing. Who are you? How do I know you're real? How do I know?
Miss Sassy Pants. Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. Like, she's like going with the flow, but she's questioning Obi-Wan. She didn't buy that. He keeps telling her, like, I'm a Jedi. I know your parents, but she was questioning him. I also love, I tried to get as best of a screen grab as I could of this guy. She like, eventually she winds up running away from Obi-Wan and she runs through this guy's legs. I have no clue what this creature is or what this species is, but I thought it was so cool. And I thought it was hilarious that she just went right underneath him and just, he looks like a damn polar bear, and I loved it.
Give me all the Star Wars animals. They're so adorable. Well, actually, not all of them are adorable. I just want to see more animals, though. It's so cool what they can come up with, and they've given us so far.
Yeah, and I really appreciated, we saw this in part 1, and definitely in part 2, just seeing these background ancillary characters, these species that were definitely practical effects, or they at least looked like they were done with practical effects, which I really appreciated. And yeah, this guy here, don't know who the hell they are or what species they are, but I thought it was hilarious that Leia just runs right underneath him, and looks like maybe she could have even given him a ball tap, but just
it could have been a lady.
It could have been, yeah, it could have been a lady. But yeah, she winds up running away from Obi-Wan, and then we see, I thought this was Forlom initially, like, especially when we saw this character in the trailer. I thought this was going to be Forlom, who is like the partner for the bounty hunter Zuckuss, who we saw in Empire Strikes Back when Darth Vader is hiring these bounty hunters to find the Millennium Falcon. But it's not. I wound up looking it up. It's some droid named IJAC, which I was kind of hoping it would be Forlom, because I was hoping that maybe we would see Zuckuss. I love Zuckuss in the Bounty Hunters comic series, so I was hoping we would get to see Forlom and Zuckuss, but it's not Forlom. But at any rate, we see that these bounty hunters find Obi-Wan and find Leia, and things start to get really dicey. I thought it was hilarious. Oh, let's go back for a second. When the third sister is on a building top and she sees Obi-Wan getting shot by these bounty hunters, and all of a sudden starts like parkouring her way across the cityscape of Daiyu and doing like all these wild maneuvers.
I have to say, that was one thing that kind of like made me giggle. Not in the best way, but I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I think the one scene she like did a forward flip and then went into a back flip, and I was like, just use your momentum, girl. What are you doing?
Yeah, it was one of those things where like, this is kind of goofy. I don't know who greenlit the idea of her parkouring her way across the cityscape. But yeah, there was at one point she does like, she grabs a pipe and kind of like twirls. Yeah, it was a little weird. But during this scrum that Obi-Wan finds himself in, Leia, because again, she's not trusting him, she winds up falling. And this is where we see Obi-Wan again. I do think at this point, this is when he's finally tapping into the Force, and we see how much of a struggle it is for him to save Leia. She almost hits the damn ground, and it's at that point that he's able to tap into the Force and save her.
I also loved how it definitely called back to earlier in the episode when she was telling Obi-Wan like, "Oh, prove that you're a Jedi to me. Show me, make me float." And then that's how he ends up proving to her that he was a Jedi all along. Yeah,
I didn't remember that, and then you pointed that out after you had watched the second episode. I was like, oh yeah, she does do that. And yeah, I like this scene because again, it's just hammering home that idea that this is not the Obi-Wan that we remember from the prequels. This is a different Obi-Wan, and he's struggling right now to tap into the Force. But again, he's regaining that confidence and some of that strength that we know is in there. But it's just going to take some time and take some momentum. After this point, we see Haja return, and he saves Obi-Wan and Leia from one JAC. He winds up shooting that droid, and then he tells Obi-Wan that, hey, I want to make amends for what I've done. There is a cargo ship that is fully automated, which you guys can use to escape to the planet Mapuzo, which is in the mid-rim. And I appreciated that because then we saw after this, we saw Haja risk himself for Obi-Wan and Leia, risk his life, I should say, for Obi-Wan and Leia, which I really liked. I hope we get to see more of Haja, because I would like to see him, just because I like Camilo Nanjiani. So I hope this isn't the last that we see of this character, Haja.
I just also love who, I think he mentioned like, oh, you being a real Jedi, and kind of like, I'm been faking it all along, and just kind of, all right, I'm going to pay you back a little bit for all of my wrongdoings, like you said.
Yeah, which I liked. And so at this point, Obi-Wan and Leia wind up taking off. They're going to make their way to that cargo port, and Third Sister comes, and this is when Haja puts himself at risk and tells Third Sister that, hey, I'm a Jedi. You want me. You don't want these other people. And I'm not telling you what you want. And I love that she's like, well, I don't need you to tell me. I'm just going to use the Force to get inside your head and get the information that I want. So yeah, Third Sister is a total badass. And again, she will do whatever it takes to get what she wants, to get Obi-Wan. I really do think that there is more to the story as to why she wants Obi-Wan. She's going hard in the paint, man. She really wants Obi-Wan. It
almost feels personal. Like, I feel like she really has a fixation, like an obsession with him almost. Like, I would love to see if maybe there was something personal that happened maybe when she was a youngling, or
dude, that's that's a really good point that I hadn't thought of. What if she was that youngling at the beginning of the episode, what if Obi-Wan did something to spurn her that she has held on to, that made her wind up going into the dark side, or falling to the dark side and becoming an Inquisitor? Because yeah, there is definitely a reason why she's going so hard in the paint for Obi-Wan. I think there's more to it, and I'm assuming we're going to learn more about her backstory and what those motivations are as we continue along. From there, we get another gut punch scene for me, because Leia and Obi-Wan are talking. And at this point, Obi-Wan winds up telling Leia that he reminds her of a certain individual. I was just like, oh, Padme, just more heartbreak, just more pulling at my heartstrings.
Absolutely. What did he say? Stubbornness. I'm trying to think what are the other adjectives that he used, but it was just like, aw, bringing back those memories.
Yeah, I really appreciated that. And then Third Sister arrives, which again, dude, how cool is her lightsaber? I love the Inquisitor's lightsaber. And I thought it was really cool that she can sense Obi-Wan's presence here, knowing that he's hiding, because he winds up telling Leia, get to the cargo ship. I'm going to, at this point, if he has to, hold off the Third Sister. And she can sense him, and even states that his fear is betraying him, which to me, that's like, again, that's not something that I can recall Obi-Wan of the prequels or the Clone Wars happening, him having that fear enough that an opponent, a Force-sensitive opponent, would be like, your fear betrays you.
And honestly, that's kind of one reason why I thought that maybe he was closed off from the Force in the first episode. Like, she wasn't able to sense him, because they were literally, what, let's say 20 feet, so many yards away from each other when they were on Tatooine, excuse me. So the fact that she's still far away from Obi-Wan, but she can still sense him and sense his fear. I feel like he finally used the Force to open himself up again. It's fortunately a detriment to him at this point. Now she can see where he's going, or sense where he is.
That's a really good point. Yeah, and that would make sense, right? If he's cutting himself off from the Force in part 1, or he has been up to that point in part 1, that would absolutely make sense as to why the Inquisitors, because there's multiple Inquisitors on Tatooine, and we see them at multiple points getting very close to Obi-Wan, why they would not be able to sense him. But then here in this scene, she not only can sense Obi-Wan, but she's saying that, hey bro, your fear betrays you, dog. I know you're here, and I know that you're scared shitless of me. So I really appreciated that, and I really enjoyed hearing her say that. And then we get one of the like, oh my fucking God moments in the episode where she reveals to Obi-Wan that Anakin survived. And not only has he survived, Darth Vader is my lord and he wants you. And he's coming for you, bro. And the look on Ewan McGregor's face here, Ewan McGregor did such a fantastic job in these 2 episodes. I'm sure the remaining episodes, his acting is just as good, but he is such a great actor. And this moment was another moment where I was just like, oh my God, absolute gut punch of a scene.
You would have hoped that Obi-Wan would learn his lesson at this point. Like, you never know, people are dead in the Star Wars universe.
Everyone survives in Star Wars.
Poor Obi-Wan. You had Maul. Now you've got Anakin. Like, oh, keep on living.
Such an emotional scene. And this was something I'm happy that we got to see on screen. Obi-Wan learning that Anakin survived and that he's a Dark Lord of the Sith. And our boy still wants you to have your reckoning, Obi-Wan. And then the Grand Inquisitor shows up and things get wild because the frickin' third sister stabs him.
I gasped. Also, I love how scary and intense his eyes are in this shot.
Dude, yeah. He was one of the things coming into this series that I was very skeptical about or cautious about. And I have to say right now, this dude's acting, portraying the Grand Inquisitor is one of my favorite things so far about the series. And yes, he is absolutely freaking terrifying. Like, one of the things I loved, I remember telling you this, I distinctly remember the Revenge of the Sith trailer when it was coming out in theaters, and was it 2005, I believe? And one of the things that made me like, I could not wait to see Revenge of the Sith was because we got to see for a brief moment an image of a Powin that appears when Obi-Wan winds up going to Utapau, like the halfway point of the movie. And I was like, that dude looks like freaking Nosferatu and he looks scary as hell. And I love it. And so, yeah, I love that. Like, dude, the Grand Inquisitor absolutely looks like a monster here, especially with those eyes. He looks terrifying. But Third Sister's like, I don't care, and stabs him. Do you think he's dead?
No.
No way, right?
No.
He can't be. At least I hope not.
I would be so disappointed if he was, because of all of the things that happen in Star Wars Rebels. That would just be such a disappointment. But I mean, let's be real. We got Darth Vader still living. We've a little stabby stab wound. Let's shove him in a back to tank. We'll be fine.
If Darth Maul can survive the Phantom Menace, the Grand Inquisitor can survive a stab wound from the Third Sister. Although you do see, like I mentioned this to you, it looks like the Third Sister straight up murked his ass, because he is like, his eyes look lifeless when he's on the ground. He does not look alive. But yeah, if Darth Maul can survive getting chopped in half, I'm pretty sure the Grand Inquisitor can survive a stabbing to the stomach. I mean, if freaking what's her name from the Book of Boba Fett, Fennec Shand, can survive getting blasted in the gut and sitting in the desert for God knows how long and having basically an artificial stomach, I'm sure the Grand Inquisitor is going to be okay.
They'll find a way.
Yeah. Life finds a way. So at this point, the Grand Inquisitor winds up distracting Third Sister, and Obi-Wan is able to get to the cargo ship, get to Leia. The cargo ship winds up taking off. They're headed for Mapuzo, and Obi-Wan's in shock at what he just found out. He, again, had no clue that Darth Vader, Anakin, is alive, and he is completely reeling here in shock. And then, dun, dun, dun. Was not expecting to see, I mean, I figured we were going to see Darth Vader in a bacta tank, but was not expecting to see Darth Vader in a bacta tank in episode 2. This episode slaps, man. This episode was seriously so good. The last like 10 minutes of this episode, I was literally, when I watched it for the first time, just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, multiple freaking times when we saw Darth Vader in the back to tank, I again was just saying, oh my God, holy shit. So awesome. I'm assuming that means Darth Vader is going to be in part 3.
Let's hope so. Give me some Hayden Christensen action. I'm ready for it.
So yeah, I am like still reeling from part 1 and part 2. I think this completely surpassed my expectations. Again, I expected a lot of this story to tap into the Obi-Wan Kenobi Legends novel, and it did not at all. And I love that. Episode 1 was great. I love that it was a little bit of more of a slow burn to set up the wildness and the craziness that we got in part 2, and the wildness and craziness that is absolutely going to come in part 3, 4, 5, and 6. So yeah, these 2 episodes, thumbs up, man. I think absolute crushed it. Home run. Flea appearing was a little bit of not the best casting, I would say, but whatever. He's in it for maybe a minute at most.
Who did he know? Like, I want to know.
Yeah.
What's his in? I mean, I'm a dummy, and I was like, I don't know who that is. I think he looks familiar.
He's appeared in a couple things. He was in Back to the Future. I think he was in the second Back to the Future, and I'm pretty sure he played like one of the villains in that movie. I'm pretty sure Flea has only portrayed villains. Maybe I'm incorrect there, but yeah, I mean, if one of my biggest gripes is the casting of an absolute minor character, the episode had a lot of things that it did right. So yeah, I'm very excited about where the story is going to go from here, and hats off to Deborah Chow. I think she did a fantastic job.
Absolutely agree. I do have to ask, is there anybody that you think is going to be a cameo? Do you think we're going to get any more cameos coming up? We have 4 episodes left.
I wonder if we're going to see Yoda appear at some point. I thought about this when we saw Obi-Wan call out to Qui-Gon. I wondered if maybe we could see Yoda. We know Yoda can appear to people if they're in areas that are strong in the Force from Rebels. I do think we're going to see the Emperor at some point. I think at some point we're going to see Darth Sidious. It just, to me, it makes too much sense for Darth Sidious to appear. So why would you not? Especially if Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, which we know is going to happen, winds up crossing paths. Darth Sidious is absolutely going to want to know about Darth Vader encountering his former master, who was a Jedi Master of the Jedi High Council.
Absolutely. I know we mentioned Qui-Gon earlier.
Yeah, I was going to say, who are some people you think, or characters you think could appear?
We're just going to go with Qui-Gon at this point. That I feel like is a definite. I don't like gambling.
I'm wondering if we will see some flashbacks which could have moments of other Jedi from the Clone Wars and the prequels. Could Ahsoka appear? I mean, Disney's all about that synergy, bro, right? We know there's an Ahsoka series coming. I could see an instance of maybe a young Ahsoka appearing.
I'm just picturing, glad that you said that, picturing like a flashback with Obi-Wan and Anakin and Ahsoka all together back in the good old days.
How incredible would that be to see Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka in live action, dude? That would be dope.
Oh my God, I will, I don't know, scream, cry, jump for joy, one of all or all of those things. Which
then opens up the door for, if we're going to do that, right? If Deborah Chow is going to open up Pandora's box, then like any Jedi is fair game. You could have Mace Windu, Qui-Gon Jinn, Plo Koon. I mean, just so many different characters. I just feel like it opens up the door for even someone like Rex.
I was gonna say baby Kanan, baby Caleb.
Dude, give me Caleb Doom, bro. I'll take a young Kanan Jarrus. But yeah, I mean, I think we've already seen one clone trooper. Why not see a flashback with Rex or a Commander Cody? I think that would be awesome.
Oh, I would love to see a little bit of Rex. That'd be great.
Oh, dude, that would be so incredible, especially because we have never seen a live action Rex, although I don't think the character, people speculated there's like that character that looks like Rex in Return of the Jedi during but I'm pretty sure that was debunked, that's not him. But yeah, I would love to see Rex. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of potential if they start to do like flashbacks, which I know Star Wars Explain has mentioned this a bunch. Like, you're not going to hire Hayden Christensen to appear in this series if you are just going to have him be completely under the Darth Vader outfit for the entire time. I do think we're going to get flashbacks of Obi-Wan's time training with, Obi-Wan's time with Anakin, which I think would be great.
I guess my only concern would be I just hope that some of it, I know, what was it? Book of Boba Fett. There was definitely some heavy flashback time. I just hope that we don't spend that much time.
Yeah, to me, I think one flashback would probably be enough, right? We've already gotten flashbacks from Obi-Wan's nightmare, so I don't think you need to go heavy flashbacks the way that the Book of Boba Fett did, but one like really impactful flashback I think would be awesome as hell.
What an impactful flashback that we haven't seen before.
Oh, such as?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like,
dude,
nothing that we've seen in like something new that we haven't seen, like not like a reenactment from the Clone Wars or something.
How
like that.
about this? You had mentioned her to me earlier. Obi-Wan's time with Satine, protecting her during the Mandalorian Civil War. We have not seen that moment. All we know is what Obi-Wan mentions in the Clone Wars and what Satine is mentioned during the Clone Wars animated series. So that would be kind of cool, because that would again just show how much heartbreak Obi-Wan has had to deal with in his life.
Which is all of it, all the heartbreak, all the time, forever and always. Poor Obi-Wan.
Poor Obi-Wan. So yeah, I'm all about part 1 and part 2. I could not wait for you to watch them, because I was like a little kid on Christmas Day after watching part 1 and part 2. I'm so happy that you enjoyed them. Any last thoughts on these 2 episodes?
I am still so over the moon that we got to see Leia. I was so not expecting that. I love what a powerful little girl she is that has not, we can see all of her sassiness and adventure, how she truly becomes a smart as a whip rebellion leader, and how awesome she is, and what an awesome character. And I just love that. You had mentioned this earlier, like having little girls see it, and I'm like, even as a grown woman, I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. If I had seen this when I was a kid, this is great. Or like climbing trees, naming ships, like, you don't just have to be the little girly girl. You can be a rough and tumble, smart, sassy girl, and you're gonna grow up successful. So that's my little girl power feminism moment for the day.
I know a lot of people are not a fan of Disney with Star Wars, but I think, especially with Marvel, Disney has figured out a good way of making content that can be consumed by both adults and younger audiences. And yeah, when I mentioned to Leia, like, yeah, being a younger kid and getting to watch another younger kid in Star Wars and be a big part of the story. I mean, aside from the Phantom Menace, I don't think we really get that. Aside from the Mandalorian with Grogu, but Grogu's like 50 years old, even though he's still technically a baby.
You could technically say like Sabine's a teenager and Ezra's a teenager for Rebels, but
yeah, I thought it was great for Leia being included. So I think that's a good spot to leave things off. I'm very excited for episode 3, and I can't believe that this series is going to end like end of June, beginning of July, and then like 2 months later we got Andor. This is awesome as hell, and there's a ton of stuff that's been announced at Star Wars Celebration. What a goddamn time to be a Star Wars fan. I love it.
It is super exciting. So pumped.
So I think this was a longer live stream because this was 2 episodes. I'm gonna feel this out as we go along with this series. We may wind up doing a live stream each week. It might wind up being this long. Maybe it might wind up being shorter. Kind of see how it goes. But I definitely think that as the season moves on, I'll be continuing to do these live streams. So make sure you guys keep an eye out for those. I will also be releasing in between episodes during the week. I'll be releasing videos, sharing some more thoughts, and hopefully answering some questions you guys have about the series. So yeah, keep a lookout for that stuff, guys. The channel's been doing awesome, and I'm like so damn thankful and appreciative of all the support we get. You're all awesome. So I hope you guys enjoyed Obi-Wan. On that note, stay nerdy, and may the Force be with you always.